Mesalina's night, the silent scream of a teenager. My name is Mesalina. You may know me as the most feared and powerful woman in Rome, but in this story I am not the cunning empress that historians describe. I want you to know me before everything changed, before power and ambition consumed me. This is the story of a 14-year-old girl, caught in a web of shadows she didn't understand, surrounded by forces larger than herself. This is the night everything changed. It was a cold autumn night. The wind howled between the marble walls, and the stars shone weakly in the sky, as if they were distant witnesses of what was about to happen. My mother had always told me about the nights of Feralia, when the spirits of the dead roamed the earth and sought rest or revenge. But I never imagined that that night, I would be the one to fall into their clutches. My mother, an enigmatic and distant woman, always kept secrets. Life in the palace did not prepare me for what I would discover that night. The maids whispered about a ritual she was preparing in the hidden gardens of the palace, one that was not to be seen or heard by any other mortal. Curiosity got the better of me. What was it that my mother was trying to hide? At midnight, when the entire palace was asleep, I crept out of my room, wrapping myself in a cloak to protect me from the cold. The air was chilly, and each step I took echoed in the emptiness of the hallways. My heart was beating fast, and I wasn't sure if it was from excitement or fear. I walked down the marble stairs into the gardens where my mother, along with some priests, had begun her dark ritual. When I arrived, the sight took my breath away. The gardens, normally lit by the soft light of torches, were covered in eerie shadows. The altar, which I had never seen before, stood in the center, adorned with dark symbols that seemed to writhe in the moonlight. My mother, dressed in a dark robe, stood before it, surrounded by shadowy figures whispering prayers in an ancient language I could barely understand. I hid behind a pillar, shaking. I had never seen my mother like this, so powerful, so in control of something I didn't understand. Her face, which had always been cold but familiar, was now illuminated by the candles in a way that made her seem almost inhuman. I was afraid, but something kept me from turning back. The priests began to chant louder, and the air around me grew thick, as if an invisible presence was filling the space. My mother lifted a golden goblet containing a thick, black liquid, and poured it onto the altar. The substance seemed to shimmer under the moonlight, but the most terrifying thing happened then. A figure began to emerge from the bowl. At first it was just a shadow, but soon it took shape, a tall, skeletal creature with empty eyes and a crooked smile. I knew deep inside that this was no simple spirit. It was something older, more dangerous. And it was there, summoned by my mother. Terror engulfed me, and I tried to back away, but my feet seemed glued to the ground. The whispering started again, but this time, it was clearer. Mesalina, the creature called my name. I tried to scream, but my voice was choked in my throat. I wanted to run, to escape this cursed place, but my body wouldn't respond. The figure advanced towards me, its presence filling the garden with a piercing chill. Time seemed to stand still as the creature's empty eyes stared into mine. "You've seen what you shouldn't have," it whispered in a voice that echoed in my head. "Now, you will pay the price." For the first time, I looked to my mother for protection, hoping she would do something to stop this. But she did nothing. She just stared at me, with that cold smile I had learned to fear. She knew I was there. She knew I had seen it all. And yet, she did not save me. She left me there, alone, facing that shadow that consumed me. Finally, a scream escaped my mouth, but it was too late. The specter surrounded me, and in that instant I knew I was no longer the same. Something inside me broke that night. Something darker and deeper took hold of me, and I would never again be the girl I had been before. I woke up in my bed the next morning, my body shaking and my mind clouded by what I had witnessed. No one mentioned what had happened. Not my mother, not the priests, not the servants. But I knew. I knew the spirit was still with me, whispering to me in the shadows, reminding me that I was no longer a simple victim, but part of something darker. That night, the innocence of my youth was lost. And with it, the real Mesalina was born, the one who would learn to master the shadows that once terrified her. The same shadows my mother had unleashed upon me. On the quietest nights, I still hear the whispers. They call to me, reminding me of who I am, and what I must do. But most of all, they remind me that, on that dark night, it was not fate that betrayed me, but my own blood.